clicker tally sheet that every site has. And then as like another kind of double measure, just make sure that you say it to your site host or your site captain or your leadership volunteer before you leave as well. You're free to text it to your leadership volunteer, just because again, we want to make sure that we can get these counts from these sites. They're really important to us. All right. One other important role of the weekend of OHC is make sure your site doesn't get too crowded. These are definitely more pertinent to our downtown sites, but sometimes the neighborhood sites do get really busy too. So ultimately, site hosts and site captains are going to know exactly how many people can come in and out at one time. So again, they are kind of the final decision makers, especially the site hosts here. Sometimes for a really busy site, a one person in, one person out policy may need to be enacted if maximum capacity is reached. We also ask that, especially for the busier sites, but also for any site, that you'd kind of watch for what we call interior pinch points. So that might be an elevator. If folks have to take an elevator up to a certain floor to enter a site, that could delay things a bit. So make sure that you're kind of watching out for how long that's taking, or kind of watching to make sure that that's flowing smoothly as well. Also, make sure during your shift that you communicate. If there are any emergencies, 911 is the absolute first go-to here. Make sure that if anything like that happens, you call 911 first if appropriate, and then definitely let your site host and leadership volunteer know from there. And especially make sure to help out your site host or your site captain. You want to make sure that you're kind of helping them along with the weekend. Of course, we don't want to make sure that you're doing anything kind of inappropriate. So like no cleaning, no anything like that, but just kind of generally being helpful for the site to make sure that everything is flowing smoothly. And we also definitely ask that you're just responsive to your district coordinator. They're going to be checking in on their sites throughout the afternoon and throughout the day. So they might text you or call you and kind of just check in on how things are going. So make sure to be responsive when they do that. All right. So priority access passes. So any attendee with a priority access pass or proof of a CAC membership gets special priority access to CAC sites. So these folks kind of get to skip the line a bit. For downtown sites, this might be its own priority access line that we'll talk through how to kind of communicate with, or rather how to handle. But at the bottom line, anyone who comes up with a specific priority access pass or just proof of a CAC membership does get special priority access to sites. So when you're admitting attendees with priority access passes, if a site is a little bit busier and say it has a long line, you might get a lot of folks that come up with priority access passes. So you might have to start a priority access pass line. So if not, you can let those folks enter immediately. But at like a busier site downtown, make sure that the priority access pass line does kind of move a little bit faster and does get in sooner. If you do end up at a site that is busy and it does have a priority access pass line, make sure you kind of draw alternatively from each line. So maybe 2 priority access pass members get in for every one kind of general guest that gets into. Again, we want to make sure that our priority access pass members do get what the pass offers them, which is priority access. Okay, so if you choose the first shift, which is again, typically going to start about 9:45, but again, is dependent on the actual pertinent site hours. So we ask that you arrive about 15 minutes beforehand. So that'll be about 9:45. Check in with your site host, just kind of introduce yourself and ask them if they need any help, maybe setting anything out or putting any chairs out, anything like that. Make sure that you ask about where the clicker is so you can start counting guests as they come in, and just so you're prepared for that. We do also wait that the first shift waits until the second shift volunteers arrive. If typically that'll be around 1:15. If they don't arrive by about 1:30, definitely alert your leadership volunteer, because that might be a situation where maybe that second shift volunteer isn't showing up. So we want to know that really quickly so that we can maybe bring someone else into that shift to make sure that it's covered. Before you leave, if your replacement does show up, make sure that you brief them on how things are going. Tell them about maybe an interior pinch point to say, oh, that elevator is maybe taking a long time, or those stairs, people are taking a little bit longer to get through. If people can use the restrooms, just kind of facts that you learned during your shift that you think would be pertinent for your replacement to know. We also ask that you just check in with your site host and again, your leadership volunteer before leaving, just to kind of make sure that they're all set and that they know that you're leaving. If you're unable to locate maybe your site captain, definitely go ahead and text your district coordinator as well. But again, not every site is going to have a site captain, so feel free to go to both if you need. All right, shift responsibilities for the second shift. So typically your shift will end about 15 minutes after the site closes. Again, this might be 5 p.m., but it might be a little bit sooner depending on each site. So before you leave, just ask if the site host or the site captain need anything. It might be maybe taking down some posters, bringing in signs, stuff like that, just to kind of be helpful to close up the site before you leave. Make sure to leave all materials with your site host, especially the clicker tally sheet and your actual clicker. Especially for Saturday shift, this is going to be really important to make sure that you do, because we're going to need those again for Sunday, of course. There's not going to be any need to take anything with you, and especially return anything to the CAC. So if a site host does ask that, make sure to tell your leadership volunteer, because there shouldn't be anything that you need to specifically take back to us at the CAC or return for them. And again, just make sure that you kind of check in with your site host or your leadership volunteer to let them know that you're leaving before you leave. All right. So this is a little bit more pertinent for downtown sites, but if there is a really long line kind of towards the closing of your shift, make sure to kind of check in with your site host or site captain, and you might need to cap the line. It's ultimately the site host's decision on when to cap the line, but basically say for like Bank of America Tower, a site that gets really busy, if that site closes at 5 p.m., we want to make sure that the line doesn't get too long, that folks maybe at the end of the line don't get in because they're there past 5 p.m. So if you're noticing that the line is taking a while, definitely check in with your site host and your site captain. Again, it's ultimately the site host's decision on when to do this because it's ultimately their site. But if we do need to do this, a volunteer greeter, so you might need to be placed at the end of the line just to notify guests that, hey, if you get in line after this, you might not get in, but we're just closing it just so they can close on time. That's really important wording that we just want to make sure that guests don't get upset about if they join after the line. It's just so the site can actually close on time. That's why we're capping the line. And that is it. So I'm going to go through and do the live demo for how to select a shift, and then I'll go through and see any questions that have come in through the chat. So one moment, and we're going to go through again how to select a shift. All right, so this is the actual website that everyone will be sent come Monday morning. So again, we just kind of have some general information here. There's a link to go and view the sites. If you just want to have this open while you go and select a shift, absolutely go ahead and do that. One thing that I would like to mention is that we really ask that you only select one shift. We will be able to see if you select more than one. And really, if we see folks that do select more than one, we will just kind of go with whatever shift was selected first. We want to make sure that everyone who wants a shift can get access to a shift. So we really ask that you only select one. We might open up the availability for folks to select more than one the week of OHC, but for now, and the policy until then is please only select one. So you're gonna go through to here. You're gonna click on this little add button. And then these are, of course, where all the sites pop up, or rather the neighborhoods pop up. So let's say I wanna volunteer in Evanston this year. You'll see once I clicked on Evanston, it'll pop up right down here, but I also have the option to go through and cancel it because actually I want to volunteer in Beverly. So once you have your neighborhood selected, you're going to go click on this add button here. And these are all the Beverly sites that are there. So I want to volunteer at the Givens Castle this year. Again, the layout of how to select or rather how they appear here is in alphabetical order. The site is going to appear first, and then the day and the timing of the shift. You're going to see here whether or not it's mainly seated, whether it's a mix of seated or standing, or whether it's all standing. And these are how many shifts are available for this specific time. So I'm going to click this. You'll notice that my address already pre-populates, so I'm not going to touch that anywhere. I'll fill in my name, and then I'll go down here and I'll confirm my shift. And there you go. I'm going to be volunteering at the Givens Castle in Beverly Saturday morning, and it's going to be very exciting. All right, so now I'm going to respond to some questions that have come in via the chat. Excuse me. In case of a last minute can't do volunteering, who do we contact? So definitely email ohcvolunteers@architecture.com. And if you've already gotten, or rather been in contact with your leadership volunteer by then, send them an email as well. Just make sure that both I know about it and that the team behind OHC Volunteer knows about it. But also if you've already been connected with your district coordinator, let them know as well. I see some folks who maybe did not get the link to the informational guide. I'll send it as a PDF when I send this recording out tomorrow. I think maybe some email security systems blocked it a little bit, so I apologize for that. So I'll make sure to send it out as a PDF, and I will be sending out this full slide deck that I went over today as well in my presentation that also includes how to select a shift. So you'll get that with the recording of this training. Everyone will tomorrow. When are shifts released and what time will the email arrive? So the email will arrive the morning of Monday, October 3rd. I do want to preface this with, of course, we have a new system. So we do ask that you kind of allow some grace for us this year. We have a lot of very eager volunteers and we love it. But we want to make sure that we don't crash the system or kind of anything happens. So we're just going to be releasing it the morning of October 3rd, this Monday. We'll be able to see how many volunteers at each site in advance. So in that shift selection, as I said, it does show how many shifts are available. Once a shift is fully it has all the volunteers it needs, it'll disappear. So you won't be able to see it anymore. So the only shifts that you'll see on that website that I just showed you will be available shifts. So you see at the end that I showed it kind of gave like a 2 out of 2 shifts available. So that's how you'll be able to see how many shifts are there. You just signed up recently. T-shirt selection is still going on. So you still have so much time to get a t-shirt. I promise there are more t-shirts this year. Make sure to come and grab your t-shirt within the next week and a half before OHC. And I will also send out all the t-shirt pickup dates tomorrow with this recording just to kind of make sure you have that list as well. But we have one tomorrow. At the CAC, we have one Saturday from 9 to 2 at the CAC. So there's definitely still a lot of time to come get your t-shirt. Absolutely. Yes, you can pick up a t-shirt for someone that you're volunteering with or like a friend or a partner that's also volunteering. Just let us know their name and we'll track it in our system, but that is not an issue. Do we need a negative COVID test? So to volunteer generally for OHC, you don't need a negative COVID test. I will say some sites may be requiring this. Just that might be a general kind of site entry requirement. So for that, you'll need to look at that. All that information is again on the app with under all the site information, but it's also on our website. All entry requirements are listed there. That is a great question though, because I would like to know that if a site is requiring a negative COVID test or vaccination for entry, that is not the job of a volunteer greeter. You should not be asked to do that during OHC weekend. That is ultimately fully on the site to coordinate and handle. So if you get to your site and they say, okay, you're going to be checking negative COVID tests, that should not be happening. So make sure to contact your district coordinator if that does happen, because we definitely want to know about that and make sure that that doesn't happen. That's not a job that we give our volunteer graders. We don't want to give that to you. How many people are allowed to go with one priority access pass? So typically it's 2 people for a priority access pass. There are a few where maybe up to 4 are allowed. It'll say on the pass itself whether or not whether or not 2 people are allowed or whether or not 4 people are allowed. So it'll really distinctly say how many people are allowed per priority access pass. Will it be inside or outside? So that kind of depends on each site. Some sites you might be outside greeting folks as they come in. Some sites you might be inside, and you might not know that until you show up. So that's why we do really want to say, make sure that you're kind of dressed for the weather, and just kind of prepared for whatever Chicago throws at us that day. So I see a question about receiving your t-shirt at your volunteer site. So we are not giving sites extra t-shirts for our volunteers. We do ask that you try and come pick it up beforehand. If you're not able to, a friend absolutely can come pick it up for you, even if they personally aren't volunteering for OHC, but they're able to come pick it up. Absolutely, that is not an issue. So that's absolutely fine. I'm seeing a question about, is it 1 volunteer per site, or in some locations more than 1 volunteer per site? So typically for every shift, we want to get at least 2 volunteers. For some shifts, it might be more. Even if it's a job or a shift where maybe the site has told us that they only need 1 volunteer, we've kind of automatically given them 2 volunteer shifts, just to kind of make sure that everything is covered. So for every shift, if both shifts are taken, you will have another volunteer there with you, just to kind of make sure that you have a volunteer buddy, but also so that if something does happen, that there's still at least 1 volunteer there. Can you bring a snack or lunch? We ask that you eat beforehand. That's going to be a little bit dependent on the site. You won't have time during your shift to go and kind of take a lunch break, so to speak. But if you just want to bring maybe like a granola bar, that's absolutely fine. Again, it's going to be a little bit dependent on the site and whether or not some food is allowed in each and every kind of room or site that you're in. So I wouldn't plan on it. Yeah. If you want to volunteer with a friend, so if you want to volunteer with a friend, that friend will have to sign up on their own as well. You can't sign up for 2 people, because again, everyone will be getting 1 email with a specific link in it. So you won't be able to sign up for that friend as well. But if you pick a site that has 2 shifts, maybe try signing up together. That's one way to try and get in and volunteer with a friend, but you're not able to sign up for both of you at the same time. And shifts do go, or rather can go quickly. So again, we ask that you kind of bring your flexibility when it comes to selecting where you want to volunteer, who you want to volunteer with, make some new friends. Those are always fun. It is not too late for your friend to volunteer. We still do need volunteers. So absolutely send them the volunteer link. It's just openhousechicago.org/volunteer, and they can sign up and absolutely can volunteer. Can you wear an old t-shirt? The t-shirts are different than last year. We do have the new logo on them this year. We do ask that you come and try and pick up a shirt. If it's there are kind of specific situations where it's fine to wear an old OHC shirt, but we do want to make sure that everyone can just get the new OHC shirt and kind of have the new branding on it for this year. So we do ask that you come down and try to get a new t-shirt, but if it's absolutely not possible, we do of course understand, and it's fine to wear an older one as well. All right. I see a question about every time you volunteered, you were asked to give tours. And you did. How lovely. That's lovely of you. Thank you. Is this something I am not supposed to do? So typically, excuse me. Specific site information. So say like a tour or knowing specific knowledge about that site, that is not on volunteer greeters to learn or research beforehand. So definitely we don't ask that you have that knowledge ahead of time. And we kind of say the same in terms of tours. We try and leave that up to the sites because the sites and the people who work there are actual experts on it. So we don't want to make sure that you kind of bear the burden of trying to give a site, or rather trying to give a site tour and teach people about that. It's not that you're not supposed to do it. I love that you took, I love your enthusiasm for it, but it's typically not a job that we want to give to our volunteer greeters. But thank you for hopping in. That's wonderful. If a volunteer is a floater, where would I need to go? This is a wonderful question. So we have actually expanded the roles of floaters this year. So typically we do have downtown floaters. And so those are people who basically just sign up to specifically have us send them anywhere. So downtown floaters only. They do select a certain shift that they'll come to, and then they come to the CAC for their shift. Again, this is only for downtown floaters. And if you choose a downtown floater shift, this will be in your confirmation email. So basically, if you're a downtown floater, you come to the CAC at the start of your shift. Probably wait around with us. I'll be there for about the first 30, 45 minutes of every shift. And that's when we really start to hear from our leadership volunteers where we need people. It might be that a volunteer can't show up anymore, or it might be that one site is really popular and we might need a few extra people there. So as we kind of get this information in, we'll call up again our downtown floaters and deploy them to different spots downtown. We do have a new role this year, which are more kind of area specific floaters. So we have a north side floater shift, we have a west side floater shift, and we have a south side floater shift. So for this one, you just get to hang out at home or a coffee shop or wherever you would like to. It's the same kind of flow. So we'll hear from our district coordinators and from our site captains in these neighborhoods that maybe a specific site up in Lincoln Park needs extra volunteers. And so if you're a north side floater, then we'll give you a call and say, hey, can you go to the specific site? It needs extra people, and just kind of make sure that you're able to. Really, you'll only need to be on call for the first hour and 15 minutes. That's when kind of the most activity comes in of learning what volunteers maybe didn't show up, where we might need extra volunteers. So if maybe it's like 2:30 and you haven't been called up yet for your floater shift, you're just free to go explore Open House Chicago. So again, if you're a downtown floater, you come to the CAC at the start of your shift. If you are a more neighborhood specific floater, so that'll be a north side floater, a west side floater, or a south side floater, you can just hang out at home, wait for us to call. And if we don't within the first hour and a half, 2 hours, then just go explore OHC. Should you bring your vaccine card with you the day of? So again, it's not pertinent for the festival. Some sites are going to require it. So I really do suggest that you check out which sites are requiring vaccine cards. But you're of course free to bring it depending on what sites you want to go to. If you're a volunteering inside, are you allowed to wear COVID masks? Yes, you are. Absolutely feel free to wear a mask no matter what portion you go to. If it's inside, outside, you are absolutely free to wear your mask. Before Monday, can you see what volunteer sites will be open so we can try and plan which sites? That's unfortunately not possible. As I said, not every site will need volunteers, and we're just not able to kind of release that list ahead of time. But we do suggest that you come into Monday morning having about 4 to 5 sites that you really want to volunteer at. And again, just bringing a sense of adventure with you. I got a really wonderful email after OHC last year that this person had never been to the specific site on the south side, but just ended up picking it and loved it. So have maybe some sites that you want to volunteer at, but feel free to explore as well. That's the beauty of Open House Chicago. When does the app launch? The app launches this Friday, September 30th. It'll be available in the App Store. It's also a really wonderful app, so make sure you download it. Is there a place me where most needed option? That would be maybe definitely one of the floater positions. We will absolutely probably need to pull from you. So definitely one of the floater positions. And that's where you also kind of get an adventure. Like you might be sent anywhere that day, which is fun. If the site does reach capacity, how are people to be informed and can they wait to get in? Yes. So if a site does reach capacity, again, your site host and your site captain will know this first off. They're going to know the capacity and they're going to know when it's reached. They're also going to know when you might need to employ the one in, one out situation. And if it does reach capacity, then you might just need to kind of hold the line for a little bit. And that might be a situation where, again, a volunteer greeter in a red OHC shirt gets placed at the end of the line just to tell folks who might join after, like, okay, we're at capacity right now. We're this close to closing. You may or may not get in depending on how quickly the line flows from here. But your site host and your site captain will definitely be the first go-to, and they'll know when capacity is reached and when to employ that one in, one out situation. Our site's listed with district names. I'm not familiar with Chicago districts. So they are listed by neighborhood, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that they're listed by neighborhood on the website as well. So you'll be able to go through and see kind of how we list sites in each neighborhood, and that's how they're going to coordinate to how they're listed on the shift selection website as well. We just kind of pull directly from that. So you can go on the website, see kind of how we list out which neighborhoods and sites are under which neighborhood, and then that'll coordinate to how they're kind of organized in the shift selection. Can you have a break during your shift? There's no kind of specific break that we can say, okay, you're going to get a 15-minute break at the start of this or halfway through. It's going to be a little bit dependent on which site you choose. We really can't promise it. If you choose a slower site, there might be a period of, like, say 15 minutes where no volunteer or no guest comes in, and hey, that's a nice break. But we can't guarantee any break. So I wouldn't count on one. So yes, we do have over 1,200 volunteers. In terms of setting expectations for maybe some volunteers not getting an opportunity to select a shift or volunteer, I will say from previous experience, we will still have shifts. I don't foresee that happening. So I would say that everyone who wants a shift will be able to get one. Again, that being said, some shifts and sites are really popular. So this is where you kind of bring your sense of adventure, because we will still need shifts to be selected the week of and even the weekend of OHC. Just kind of dependent on where the location is or what time it is. So everyone will be able, like, we will still have shifts available, but it depends on how adventurous you want to be. Are t-shirts available every day at CAC headquarters? They are not. So there is a specific schedule that we have, as I said earlier. So the next pickup opportunity is tomorrow at the CAC from 3:30 to 6:30. We also have one on Saturday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. There's a few more next week that I will send the schedule out tomorrow. When I send out this recording, tomorrow morning, I'll send out the full list of t-shirt pickup opportunities again as well, but they will not be available every day at the CAC. No. So when you sign up for shifts on October 3rd, you do it via an email. The app has nothing to do with shift selection. It's just for fun. So you'll get an email Monday morning with a specific link on how to select a shift. And that is how you will go through and select a shift. Nothing via the app for selecting a shift. If you have someone picking up your t-shirt, who should you notify? that person can really just come to a t-shirt pickup opportunity. How that'll go is we'll ask their name, or we'll ask who they're picking up a t-shirt for. We'll log it in our system. And then that's really it. So you don't need to notify us ahead of time. That person can really just come and pick up a t-shirt. What time for shift selection email? So we are gonna open it up in the morning. I do want to preface this again with, we are rolling it out on a basis of kind of staggered. So we're going to start at 8 a.m. Not everyone is going to get their email at 8 a.m. Just because we want to make sure that the system runs as smoothly as it can be. So it'll be in the morning. Everyone will get it in the morning, but it'll just be not at a specific time. And again, we just ask you kind of give us a little bit of grace during this process as we do test out a new system, and we want to make sure that it's as smooth for everyone. How is parking for CAC t-shirt pickup? So you will need to come into the lecture hall for CAC t-shirt pickup. So don't kind of go into the front store for pickup. You will be able to, typically, depending on what other cars are there, unloading. But we have seen volunteers that are able to kind of come up, just kind of put their hazards on and then run back to the lecture hall. We do have signs directing people to the lecture hall. It's just really kind of the left side of the building. On the other end of it's kind of through a plaza, but we'll have signs directing you there. But it's a little bit dependent on what other cars are there. But typically volunteers haven't had an issue just kind of putting their hazards on and running up to the lecture hall to grab a t-shirt. Can you pick up a t-shirt the day you volunteer? Yes, you can pick up a t-shirt the day you volunteer, only at the CAC. We will be there starting at 8 a.m. both days of Open House Chicago weekend. So you can come pick it up before your shift. Shifts, again, don't start until 9:45. So if you're a morning shift, you do still have time to come pick up a t-shirt the morning of. We'll be there from 8 a.m. on both days. All right, so I see a question about you've been a floater, you were pulled off your shift. You've never been a floater, but you were pulled off a shift and transported to another location and neighborhood where they were having issues with some visitors. Does this happen often? This doesn't typically happen often, but I do want to thank you because you were one of our rock star volunteers, rather, that really was just able to go where we needed you, which we really do appreciate. This doesn't happen often. So I wouldn't expect it this year, but it might happen. So we thank you again for your flexibility doing that last year. It's not an expectation, but it is just something that might happen. And again, we thank you for that. So, all right. I think that is it for the questions. If there are any more, how many volunteers do we have this year? We have a little over 1,200. We do need more. So if you have a friend who wants to volunteer, definitely have them sign up. 100. In terms of the address for the alternate site for t-shirt pickup beyond the CAC, yes, I can send that out, but it is 908 North Damon. I do want to preface that with saying it is only specific hours the week of OHC. We don't have the t-shirts at that location all the time. So it's only specific hours, and those hours and location again will be sent to you tomorrow when I send out this recording. All right. I think that is it for questions. Well, thank you again. As I've said many times before, we truly cannot do this festival without you. So we really do appreciate it. You are a really, really huge part of making sure that OHC runs smoothly year after year. And we thank you. So thank you for that. Tours of buildings. No, so touring buildings is not something that we'll ask of you. That's not the role of a volunteer grader, no. Others will be doing that, specifically who work at the sites. So I see one about volunteering with your sister if you get the email at different. So so the emails will be coming at really different times. It'll really be over the course of a few minutes. But this is really just how we have to implement shift selection this year. So again, bring your sense of adventure and have a great time volunteering with your sister. Diane, you should not get a whistle. You can bring one if you want to use it after, but we don't need one for volunteering. But I like your creativity. So thank you. I think that is it for questions. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your evening. Oh, thank you, Michael. Looking forward to having you volunteer with us. Bye, everyone. Enjoy. The recording will be sent out tomorrow. Okay. Bye. Have a lovely evening. All right, I think that we are set.